Pajamas. We are here today for our weekly tax updates here at Philtaxes. So, today we have a guest coming from Sison, Corillo, Parone and Company. Si Junar, Madali. Madali. Kumusta, Junar? How are you?
I'm fine, sir.
Yeah. Junar is a tax supervisor in Sison, Corillo, Parone and Company. This is an accounting firm. And today we will be discussing about Revenue Regulation number 16-2018. This revenue regulation talks about the use of thermal paper in point of sale systems or CRM machines. Say for example, you have a small store or retail store, and then you are using a POS or a CRM. We will be discussing on the use of the thermal paper. Yeah, Junar, can you give to us the background of this revenue regulation?
This newly issued revenue regulations RR 16/2018 tends to amend the previously issued RR, which is the RR 10/2015.
Can you give us the background of RR 10-2015?
The previously issued RR 10/2015 banning all the thermal paper to be used in the old establishment because it can be easily erased. So this is not practical for the establishment to use this because
there is a requirement by the BIR for the companies to retain the records of any purchases or expense to store that for 10 years or retention period of 3 years in hard copy and 10 years for soft copy. So what is the effect? See, for example, there is a company, we have a small company now, and you will buy from a company who is using a POS machine or a CRM which uses thermal paper. So what is the effect of that?
Like for example, the examiner can no longer be examine that use of the accounting records, which is the thermal paper. So it is useless to keep that to use that certain paper as an support to the entries in our journal entries in our accounting books of record.
Okay. So what you're saying, say for example in that scenario, we have a company, ABC company, buys from, say for example, XYZ company. Say for example, buys this computer, and the computer cost is about 50,000 pesos. And the other company is using POS or CRM machine, which actually issues thermal paper. Thermal paper is a kind of paper which the print can be erased within a period of time, few number of months only it will be erased. So when the company gives to me the piece of paper, and I will obviously record it in the accounting, agree? And after recording it in the accounting, that document now or official receipt will be used, or sales invoice or official receipt will be used now as the supporting document for the purchase. And obviously what you're saying is with the BIR comes in to audit our company, the time maybe within 1 year, that piece of paper, the printout on that piece of paper will be erased. So that is what is all about the use of thermal paper in Revenue Regulation 10-2015 that was issued here in the year 2015. So basically, in last 2015, it was already disallowed by the BIR for the use of thermal paper. Why? Because the BIR requires the records to be kept or retained in a certain company or a taxpayer for 3 years in hard copy and 10 years for a soft copy. So which means if you will retain the thermal paper and the printout is, can be erased. So at the end of the day, it will not be in compliance with those regulations. Okay. So, what is the new regulation now?
RR 1628, and that the scope of this is to amend that to the R 10/15, no?
Okay.
Now, all the businesses shall now have the option to use any kind of paper that depending on their business requirements. That's subject of course to the retentions of these accounting records, that the assessment and the collection of taxes as prescribed in the section 203 and 222 of the NIRC Code of 1997.
So at the end of the day, how will, say for example in that company, so it really now allows the owner of the POS or the seller to use the thermal paper.
Yes.
So maybe for the benefit of our listeners and viewers, the question is, why are the companies using thermal paper? That's basically the question. Why do they prefer to use thermal paper? Based on my personal research, actually, thermal paper is much easier or much cheaper to use. Cheaper, mas mura siya. For two reasons. The paper itself is very cheap and you do not use any ink. You do not use any ink. So it's very much cheaper by I think more than 50%. So that is why companies tend to use thermal paper. But the setback or the disadvantage of the thermal paper use is basically the printout will be erased within just few days or few months. Okay? So based on that, what will you advise now to those companies who are receiving this kind of receipts in thermal paper? What will be your advice to them?
The best advice that I can give to those, if the company receive that kind of paper, which is the thermal paper, they can scan it and have it printed in the bond paper, which is of course to this thermal paper, of course to save it in a soft copy.
Okay. So that will be compliant with the BIR rules. That when the BIR examines the company records, you have now approved to present that it's printed in a paper which the print cannot be erased. That's a very good suggestion, but based on this regulation now, the burden has been shifted from the seller to the buyer. Agreed? Now, how about if the buyer will say that, no, I don't want to do that, I don't want to photocopy that anymore, I just want a scanned copy. Will that be okay?
The buyer can also request for a manual receipt.
Okay.
Then the seller, or what I mean is the seller can issue the manual receipt. Then then the buyer will now return the tape receipt.
Okay. Okay, that's a very good suggestion. That, say for example, that company is issuing thermal paper, so the buyer, me as a buyer, can actually demand for an official manual receipt. So if I will demand for a manual receipt, that will now be approved that I made this purchase. Yeah, but based on my experience, this is for our viewers. I have experienced this in one mall. I don't want to mention the name of this store, but basically, the company or the cashier issued me a thermal paper, and then they asked me to go to another counter who issues this kind of paper, the real paper invoice now. So it puts a lot of burden on me if I am in a rush or I am in a hurry. So my tendency, instead of just thinking of I will go again to another line, to another counter, why not just print it out or maybe scan it and then store it, and if the BIR will come to me at the end of the day, I'll just print the scanned copy and show to them.
Under this regulation, sir, the invoice or the receipt that has been printed in the POS can be used as claim for the input taxes.
Okay.
Provided that it complies to the invoicing requirements of the BIR.
So what's the invoicing requirement?
As stated in the RR 16/2018, enumerated there that it shows the taxpayer's name, taxpayer's address, the number, if, and of course the classification if he or the taxpayer is VAT or non-VAT,
Okay.
and the business style, the amount, the cost, and the quantity of the purchase,
Okay.
and of course it must be shown that the CRM and the POS machine accreditation number.
Okay. And the expiry date.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So yeah, that's right. So these are the requirements as far as the POS is concerned. But the challenge now, basically, the basic question is, if I am the purchaser, because whatever I buy, that should be claimed as an expense. Agree? Ultimately, for income tax purposes, that will be used now to deduct. Now, if I will give advice to our listeners, maybe based on what you have mentioned, is if I am now the buyer, instead of just accepting, if I purchase this computer for 50,000, instead of just accepting the thermal paper, the first step or first priority is I should go ask for a manual receipt. That's the best choice. Agree? And that is very much suggested if the purchase is big amounts of money. So ask for a manual invoice or official receipt, depending if it is a product or goods or a service. So number 2 advice is basically assuming that you were not able to get a manual receipt, you scan it, and then after scanning it, you print a hard copy to support your documents in the accounting records. Why would I suggest that it should still be printed? Is because at the end of the day, if the soft copy is lost, at least you have a hard copy. And the third advice is, once you scan it, make sure that you should have the proper documentation, or what we call as indexing and referencing in your database server, because that is a very critical document, most especially if the price or the amount that you purchase is very large. Now, scanning is very basic, not only for purchases that you made on which you ask for a manual invoice or OR, but for all actual types of purchases, we should scan it, because the BIR also requires for at least 10 years retention period. Okay? So what else other key salient features of that revenue regulation?
They also indicated here that the following shall be printed in the bottom part of the receipts, no? The name and address of the accredited suppliers,
Okay.
the accreditation number, the validity, which is the 5 years from the issue date of the permit of use date, POS or the CRMS.
Okay.
And the invoice receipt shall be valid for 5 years from the date of the permit use, must be printed on the down part of the receipt.
Okay. But what you mentioned is actually the regulations now for the use of POS machine. So which is also another revenue regulation. Yeah, you're right there. So in another regulation, they use the complete details of the POS machine. Agree? Its expiry date, the name, everything, as far as the BIR is concerned, should be printed on that receipt. Agree. And I just noticed that there are some big restaurants or chain of, for food, what you call this, fast food chains. They're just issuing a very short receipt, which that requirement that you mentioned is not there. So for all our buyers, purchasers, take note also that it's not only the paper but the information on the paper. Okay, any other information that you want to share with us?
And of course, I just want also to share that all establishment that is using this POS and the cash register machine has a repertorial requirements every 10th of the month, the e-sales, what we call the e-sales, the electronic sales or electronic filing of sales. No. They are required to declare the gross receipts of each sales that is generated from this POS or the CRM
machine. Okay. Just for discussion purposes, for the listeners or for our viewers, I would like to ask you the difference between the CRM machine or cash register machine and the POS, which is a point of sale system.
The CRM or the cash registered machine is not operated by the software. However, the points of sales is run by the software.
Okay, so the CRM is just like a calculator with a tape.
With a tape.
Yeah, but it can store the goods there, and it has a specific amount. Say, for example, you go to a restaurant and there is this food A, and then it has an equivalent amount, and with this punch in, it will run now like a calculator with a tape, and it goes out. So that is CRM, and you mentioned there is no database. It is not run by a software, but and also there is no database to it. While a point of sale system or POS, it is run by a software and it has data and records. It stores data and record. Now, that's very right. The company should submit every 10th of the following month the report. But what kind of report? Is it from the POS report or from the CRM report? Because as you mentioned, CRM does not retain data.
As mentioned in the RR, all statements that are using this CRM and the POS must
Have a reading or something like that?
required to submit electronic filing of sales.
Okay. But obviously, since CRM doesn't have a database, what kind of record should the company submit, assuming they're using a CRM?
They can manually input it to the e-sales portal.
They will manually input it in a e-sales portal. So, what you're saying now, if they are using a CRM machine, whatever their sales, or say they have 20 or 1,000 transactions, they should put it in what? In where?
In the portal, sir.
In a portal, e-sales portal, which is available in the BIR website.
Yes.
Okay, and then that will become a double work now on the taxpayers, the company. However, if the company is using a POS, which is a database, they will just generate the report and then submit it to the BIR on the 10th of the following month. Okay, what will happen if the company will not submit?
It is subject for a penalty or the company's penalty from 1,000 to 50,000.
1,000 to 50,000? Wow. So they really have to comply if they are using a CRM machine. Now, for the information of our listeners again, POS suppliers are normally accredited by the BIR. CRM are POS machine suppliers. That is why if you will use now a POS or a CRM machine, you should check if the vendor of the POS machine is accredited by the BIR. Okay? Any other information that you want to add, Junar? Okay, so this RR is already effective now.
Yes.
Okay, so it was effective since August, maybe? Or April?
May 2018, sir.
May 2018. So right now is a few months already has passed. So basically this is already effective. Okay, so much for that. That is all about the use of thermal paper and the POS machine of a certain company. These are the requirements. They are now allowed to use thermal paper, provided they can ask for a manual receipt or sales invoice, and then they should scan it and print it if necessary and store it for the next 10 years. With that, thank you very much, Junar, for joining us today. And we would like to thank you for the viewers and our listeners. Again, this is Sison, the Accountant-in-Pajamas. And this is Philtaxes, a publication of Sison, Corillo, Parone and Company. Thank you very much and good day. You have just watched Philtaxes, a publication of Sison, Corillo, Parone and Company, together with myself, the Accountant-in-Pajamas. I want you to buy our new book, Secrets in Winning Tax Audit. You can see here in this side, the cover of the book. We will release that this coming November or late October. Watch out for that book, Secrets in Winning Tax Audit.